at airtime, and kind of a musty, cloudy, hazy morning here, but I'm sure that the heat is on its way. And we were fortunate last week to have just a little bit of rain here, so things are still a little bit green, but they're turning south fast. But I did a little trip yesterday, not very far from here, to Lynn, and things are drying, and things are drying up pretty immensely across mid-Missouri, so a shower of rain would be absolutely welcome. Hey, good for you to be along here this morning on KTUI, 1560 AM, 94.1 FM, or possibly you're watching on Facebook Live. If so, good to have you aboard here, and my apologies for us not being live the last couple of weeks, but we've had a new addition to our family. Gracie had her baby 2 weeks ago, and everybody's doing fine. Sue is her name, and we're just delighted to have her, and everybody's doing great. Actually, we took another little road trip yesterday, Grace and I and Sawyer, to Washington, and everything's fine, and we're very fortunate and blessed to be number 7 grandchild that we have in the last 2 3/4 years. So we have 7 grandchildren now that are 2 and under, and what a blessing that is. So Karen is at home babysitting right now. She has golden opportunities anytime that she wants to babysit. So, and part of this, situation too, since Grace wasn't here, was kind of hard to train our producer, director, electrician, technical support system person, Charlie, who's put us on here on the air this morning. And so it takes just a little bit to get everything going in our direction. So thanks for being along here today, and we have a very special guest with us today. Has no stranger to the White Mule and our radio show. We did several from here before, but it's Representative Bruce Sassman from the what district?
62nd.
62nd. They change them all the time, Bruce.
And they're going to change it again, I think.
I know. What does that tell us? When, every district can change, or will change, basically, every 10 years, and I can't keep track. I was 111, and that's changed twice now since I was in.
Yeah, and before you, Jeff was in there. Jeff, I think, was termed or redistricted out of office,
yes,
wasn't he?
Yes. Well, that was on the Senate side, I think. Jeff Schaefer Cutter. Is that who you're talking? Yeah. Yeah, and that was on the Senate side,
And so for those that don't know, districts for our state rep are about 37,000 people in each district, so every representative represents the same number of people. And so some of the districts are large to encompass those 37,000 people. Some of the districts in the city where there's a higher population density, that the districts are really pretty small. Some guys can ride their bicycles around the district, where guys out here in the country, and our district runs from Rosebud all the way to St. Elizabeth, Mary's home near Highway 54 south out of Jeff City. So it's, it takes me an hour and a half to go from one end to the other. And north to south, it's Highway 50 at Lynn and all the way to Rolla and Phelps County. So I have 7 counties in this district. Wow. To be able to get my 37 people. I have part of Crawford County at Cuba, part of Phelps County at Rolla, have all of Mary's County, but I have part of Miller County, which takes in St. Elizabeth, part of Cole County, which takes in part of Jeff City, half of Osage, and half of Gasconade, where we are today.
Of course, those districts are gerrymandered, you know what I'm saying, by a political process that, i.e., ends up being a legal process in a lot of, situations. But your predecessor, Tom Lerner, said at one time when he was there, before they put a stoplight in on Highway 28 and 19 at Owensville, that he never had a stoplight in his district.
Well, things haven't changed. Things haven't changed much.
And that's the way I like it, you know?
Yeah, me too. I mean, but it's a long way to get around, and hard to get to know people when they're, you know, in communities, because every community has its own tight little niche, and people are proud to be from the communities where they grew up, and I am too.
But, you know, it is, I totally understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, Bruce, we are all integrated together much closer than one realizes, because I'm going to dare to say that, you know, the Sassman name, you know, if you go out through that whole district, probably has first or second cousins in just about every corner.
We all do, don't we?
No.
So it's actually the Kreider name that carries.
Is that who-
and
okay.
we may be related, Charlie, if you go back far enough. Yeah. So it kind of brings us to another story. One of my great-great-grandfathers was Daniel Kreider. Daniel Kreider settled here in the Dry Fork Township of Gaston County in 1820. It was,
Wow, that's early.
It was a year before.
You know, that's before Missouri become a state.
It was a year before Missouri became a state. Missouri became a state and received its statehood during the Great Compromise, August the 10th of 1821. So this year, August the 10th, 2021 will be our bicentennial year celebration. The celebration itself, though, will happen in Jeff City on the 18th of September, and they're going to incorporate that with the inaugural ball. The governor really didn't get to have a chance to
Right.
because of the COVID and the restrictions we had at the Capitol, but now we're going to throw a big party, and the whole state is welcome to come to Jeff City September the 18th for the bicentennial celebration and the inaugural ball.
You know, that absolutely sounds wonderful, because, you know, this last year and a half has been a difficult time, you know, in regard to everything, you know, without a doubt. But, you know, thank goodness it appears that we are coming out of it strong, and people are anxious to get out and about. You know, the picnics, you know, here we've seen people, we've been blessed all along here to have good turnout. You know, only the last 2 months, Bruce, have we had, you know, groups that have notoriously, mostly older people, you know, that have met here once a month, twice a year, whatever, that bring the family in from maybe St. Louis or Jeff City or Washington or Lynn, and they've come here and met just the past 2 months since, you know, the vaccination has been there. Every week there's a couple of tables here that have reunions, you know, back. And good to see them old faces, and it's good to resharpen the saw, you know, with those individuals. I don't know if you had anything to do with this, you know, inoculation or anything, but Missouri did an incredible job, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
I think the governor did a great job letting people take responsibility for themselves, not forcing it, right? Which, by the way, I think the governor just signed a bill. I was going to bring a copy, but it has to do with a COVID passport, and there are some states that want to require you to have a passport. In the state of Missouri, you do not have to have a COVID passport, proof of vaccination, to participate in activities. So you come to the Capitol for the bicentennial celebration, you don't have to show your passport to get in. You just walk right in, and I think that's the greatest freedom that a people can have.
I want to backtrack just a little bit, because you know, you had indicated that Kreider, you know, family had come in 1820, right before Missouri become a state. Just for Gasconade County's sake, do you realize that Gasconade County once covered the entirety of the watershed of the Gasconade River? Almost a third of the state of Missouri, okay, was Gasconade County, Missouri at one time. That must have been like in the 1810s or 12s, you know, but before they apportioned the counties and did whatever. So
It's the Gasconade River watershed.
the Gasconade River watershed runs all the way down to Springfield, Missouri almost, and all the way back up here. Anything that flows into that plus some.
Well, that's it. I knew the Gasconade County was large, but I didn't realize it included. I floated the entire Gasconade River. It's 248 miles from the headwaters to the confluence with the Missouri River. And when we used a canoe for the first 100 miles of the Gasconade, and where we put in, we could step across the Gasconade River. And you're right, it's down South Missouri. It flows north,
That's amazing.
one of the crookedest rivers in the state, maybe the country, the meander. And if people complain, boaters complain that it's slow, down here in our part of the world, it's just as slow in the upper part.
You're carrying.
We paddle our butts off just to get down the river. But
So, in your legislative term, you may want to consider filing a bill to take back all of what Gasconade County once were. You would be a hero. If we could take back this entire watershed area and claim it all to Gasconade County, our tacticians would be mute.
do you realize how many state reps we'd have in Gasconade County? Yeah, so back to that story a little bit, and we're going to meander back and forth like the river, but there are 88 state reps that represent only one county or pieces of a county. Some counties have multiple state reps. Greene County, I think, has 8 state reps.
163, correct?
163 total, yeah, but 8 just in Greene County. And St. Louis, Kansas City, they have multiple state reps, where when you get out here, we have few. But now we get back to your ideas, incorporating the Gasconade River watershed into one county. Man, we could be well represented, you know it?
I think it's a political issue.
Yeah. Let's take that up on the floor. I could do some research, pre-file in December, that goes.
Well, let's talk about serious stuff here, Bruce. A good legislative session, in regard to a lot of the accomplishments, I think, that were made, and in general, a couple issues, I think, are relevant to talk about. The COVID. We did some good work, or you all did some good work, I think, on liability issues in regard to COVID for churches, for businesses, and those particular things, to make sure that there's no drawbacks or, clawbacks, I should say, if people got the COVID, that they can directly say that it come from a church or a business or whatever. So you did a good job in regard to taking care of those liabilities.
Yeah. I brought a stack of papers, and I probably could have and been better prepared to look up those particular statutes, but they just went into effect. I think the governor just signed those just in the last day or two. Tuesday or Wednesday maybe had signed that COVID liability legislation that limited liability for small businesses, churches, like you mentioned. But yeah, I think the governor did a great job, and I think we had some great legislation to pave the way to make Missouri a freer state, to let people move in and out and do business as usual rather than to restrict them. Now, the governor did allow local authorities to make up their own rules, and I think in St. Louis in particular, I think that was a place where the county health officials down there were really hard on businesses. And we had one particular committee meeting, and I sat on 3 committees. One of them is a special committee for small business, and we had some businessmen from St. Louis who were losing the business that they had worked for years to build. And they came to the committee meeting to tell us their story, and before their story ended, I saw grown men in tears, because everything that they'd worked for, the entire investment in their life, was lost because of COVID and the restrictions that the local health department had put on them in St. Louis. It's a really sad story. And part of the legislation that we had written and passed was born from those conversations in that particular committee.
I think they got it right. I mean, I think for not going into this situation and nobody really not having a given in any regard how this is going to spread, what is going to be done, and yes, there are concerns, or there was concern about, some of the local, regulations for nursing homes and some of those, but them people are just trying to do their job.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand.
Exercise on the err on the side of caution.
Exactly.
And the legislation that passed, the local health authorities, they still may have the same authority, but the time period for which they can exercise their authority has been reduced. So they can shut everything down for 30 days, but beyond 30 days, they have to have the blessing of the local elected officials. You just can't have some self-authority health officials say, we're going to shut things down for a year. And that's what happened in the city, and some of those folks, they couldn't survive for a year. So we have to get more people involved in the conversation, and that's what the legislation involves.
Economically speaking, in my opinion, probably the best bill, and this is only my opinion, you may not even agree with this, I don't know how you voted for it, but I think I do. But getting some more tax for roads and bridges, getting Missouri in a more competitive situation, one of the lowest, if not one of the very lowest taxed state on fuel.
Fourth lowest.
Fourth lowest in the U.S.?
In the U.S. out of 50. I think Alaska was the lowest. And I don't remember the number of miles of roads that we have, but it's right up there in the top tier. The amount of taxes we get's in the low tier, and we just...
And the number of bridges we got is in the high tier.
Yeah, and we haven't had an increase since 1996, and those dollars that we approved in 1996 have a spending power today of about 6 cents. So trying to maintain our roads and bridges on 6 cents of 1996 dollars, it's just not possible.
And our senator,
Dave Schatz,
was instrumental in that bill in the Senate side, I know, and worked hard on it, and kind of brought together a coalition of Democrats and Republicans.
With the Farm Bureau.
All doing the right thing. Imagine that you guys are actually working together for the benefit of Missouri citizens.
Pretty cool, huh?
What happened?
Somebody came in the wrong door, I don't know. But yeah, the interesting thing about that gas tax is, and I think it was a genius in that, like the taxes you pay on farm fuel, you can apply for a refund, right? So you put gas in the tractor, and if there's road tax paid on that, you can apply and get that tax back. The same thing happens on this gas tax that is just passed. You keep your receipts, you take a photograph of your receipts, you somehow document the money you spent for fuel at the end of the year. I'm told, I haven't seen it yet, but it's a one-page form that you fill out. You don't even have to send your receipts in. You keep them in case you're audited, but you simply just report the tax that you paid, and you get that tax back. So now some people are just not going to bother. It's going to be $20, and I say, that's my contribution to roads and bridges. People who are passing through the state are not eligible to receive that.
That's the biggie right there.
Yeah.
I mean, because we are such a transient, is that a transient word? People passing through our state. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, there's a phenomenal amount of traffic on 44 and 70, and even 50, that go through, then 60, 63, you name it. If they want to go anywhere in the U.S. of A, from the west to the east, or from east to the west, or north to south, odds are the best road choice is going to be through the state of Missouri.
Oh, absolutely.
And the most direct route.
We're the population center of the country.
Exactly.
So that was down...
Springfield, Steelville.
Steelville, but I think it's shifted toward 63 now.
Okay.
So down toward maybe Houston or somewhere, but the population center of the country, that's really huge. So if you live there, you have just as many people in every direction.
So whatever you're thinking about this as a consumer, and I thought about it a little bit also, but you in the state of Missouri, if you keep those things, you can apply for those things. People going through our state, and I don't know what the numbers is, you may, but overwhelming supply, of the taxes, on this thing is coming from out-of-state travel. So
Well, and two, for money for roads and bridges, it doesn't come from the education fund, it doesn't come from the Medicare fund. It's a user fee, and the tax comes from, for the most part, our fuel tax, and not from other sources. So we just can't go out and grab money for roads and bridges from other funds, because other funds are restricted. So we have to come up with our own way to fund roads and bridges, and this was one vehicle to do that.
And you know, I think it's fair. There's a lot of truck traffic. There's no question about it all. But we are still very, very competitive in regard to the states surrounding us. So you know, they're going to still choose Missouri. You know what I'm saying? To fuel up in most situations, because it's still going to be cheaper than Iowa, I know, you know, and probably, I don't know about Kansas. I know Illinois is going to be cheaper, you know. I'm not exactly sure about Kansas and some of the others, but I would guess it is.
Your cousin and mine and I just came back from a road trip. We drove out to California, and everywhere we went, gas was higher than it was when we left Missouri. So we got to California, and it was $1.50 higher. We were...
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, $1.50. But I think their total fuel tax is $1.50 higher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, you know, my accolades, you know, to taking on this issue and putting it in over, what is it, 6 years or 7 years or whatever it is, or 5 years?
No, I think it's just 5 years,
Okay.
and 2.5 cents a year, so it'll come out to 12.5 cents. But again, it's money that you can get back if you want to go to the trouble to do that. If you don't want to bother, then that's fine too.
It's okay, and I'm not gonna file for it, I'll tell you that, because I've been an advocate of infrastructure, and I know as a business, I know as a farmer, that if you quit investing in yourself and your infrastructure, if you quit building barns, and if you quit, you know, building, you know, new roads and new opportunities, just get out of business.
You probably have a better grip on this. You were county commissioner, so of that state road tax, you get a portion of that. The county
Exactly.
gets it, the city gets it. It's shared across the state, so it's not just the state Department of Transportation gets it, but all the entities share in that tax.
You know, so good job up there. I guess probably the biggest controversial issue that you guys took on was the Medicaid, you know, expansion that people voted upon. The problem, as I first see it here, Bruce, is that it's pretty easy to vote for something if you don't know who's going to pay the bill or where the money's going to come from.
Well, that was the reason that...
Are you for apple pie and mom and, you know, I was going to say Chevrolet, but Dodge, you know?
Well, the folks who drafted that initiative petition failed to put in a funding source. And if they had identified a funding source, then Medicaid would have been expanded. But the way it was, they didn't have the authority to appropriate funds, and we're not going to appropriate funds without a funding source. That's as simple as that. So it looks like that's going nowhere. We don't have to expand Medicaid until somebody comes up with a funding source, or there's another initiative petition and there's a funding source identified. So that's...
Has there been a ruling on this? Do you know? I mean, in the court system? It's in the court now.
It's in courts now, and they want to get this done by July 1st because some of the benefits will start on July 1st. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
you know, I can't keep track of everything I read, but it's right there, and it looks like it's not going anywhere.
I don't remember, Bruce, but being on budget, I'm going to say maybe, you know, the healthcare, you know, system as a whole in Missouri is maybe 60% of our entire budget.
No.
I mean, all of the Medicaid, and I mean, I don't know, but it's a lot.
Well, you know,
But maybe it's not 60%.
it's not. And here's right
Okay.
here, the very top, 30%.
Oh, you're right. 30, this is good stuff right here, Bruce.
Oh, I know. So
30%, and then education's 21.
with an occupant 55 years or older should have got this flyer, should have come in the mail from me and from our office. But this is the end of session report. A lot of the state reps sent these out just to get people an idea of what we did.
And you're totally correct here, okay? But just looking at this here, if we look at that 30 cents, but then If we add mental health to that, that's another 8%.
Yes.
And if we do health and senior services, that's another 7%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm still wrong and you're still right. But if you look at the bigger picture here, it's a considerable amount of our budget.
Oh, yeah, we talk about it being in excess of 40%, but that's the cumulative total of all of the entities that depend upon those dollars. So you're right. So if we had social services 30, we had mental health another 8, that's 38. We had health and senior services another 7, so that's 45% of our budget. Yeah, compared.
And then also, if you pass this thing, it was going to drive that up considerably in a few years when the federal government was no longer going to pay for it.
Oh, absolutely. 50% of our state budget. And our state budget is, in total, $35 billion, and half of that $35 billion just would have gone to these health care services.
Okay, Bruce. I mean, that used to be a lot of money, but here's the best part of what you just showed me, and I hope all of your constituents are going to get one of these.
All of those households, again,
But look at this public debt. On the bottom line, 0.04 cents of the budget goes for public debt. Imagine that on the federal government side, if only 4 cents of every dollar spent went to public debt. That's great. I mean, this is awesome.
This is some bonded indebtedness, and I'm impressed that you were on the budget committee, because I was on special committee for tourism, special committee for small business, and conservation natural resources. I was not on budget. And you're assigned to committees, as you know, by the speaker, and you can request committees, but you don't know, and you may get them and you may not.
If you continue as you continue, though, if you really, really want to, you'll probably be able to get on those budget things. But you know what? You are where you need to be at this juncture, more than likely.
I think so.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're on tourism, you're on those particular things. Well, where else? What's going to affect our budget in 3 to 5 or 10 years from now, any more than tourism?
Well, it's the second largest industry in the state of Missouri, right? So, and I'm surprised we don't do more in tourism, and we're going to work on that. But it's tourism, the Rock Island Trail.
Yeah, the Rock Island, right at Rosebud and Bland.
Are you ready to go there?
I'm ready to go there.
So I was impressed in last week's newspaper. Blaine Lukemeyer, in Blaine's Bulletin, U.S. Congressman Blaine Lukemeyer, had a paragraph about the Rock Island Trail, and appears to be supportive of that. And he's in a position that he could help move that along.
Tremendous position.
And our state director, Mike Sutherland, has
an associate of mine.
Well, and
Blaine was too, but yeah.
Well, and U.S. Congressman Blaine Lukemeyer was also a state park director. Did you know that?
Exactly. Yes, I do.
So he was state park director. Our current state park director, Mike Sutherland, has sent a letter for a funding request from the federal government for $20 million just for the Rock Island Trail. Now, the way the federal government is spending money, I think, is reckless, and I don't support the reckless spending on the federal side. But I will say this: if they're going to spend the money, spend it all in Missouri. Don't send it to California; they don't need it. But if there's going to be money spent, and the earmarks had died a long time ago, but the Democrats now brought the earmarks back, and that's really the funding source for this $20 million is an earmark.
And contact your congressman if you're supportive of this. You know what I'm saying? Or and everybody knows that this is Blunt's last term. He's retiring, and he's the big stick in the mud. I mean, not stick in the mud. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Him and Kobakar, you know what I'm saying, are the ones that are engineering an awful lot of this transportation thing, and. And they're working together as senators. I don't know how many people know her, but she's an influential force, you know what I'm saying, in Congress.
Congressman Lukemeyer is an influential force when it comes to finance, and should the Republicans take over the House in Washington, it's a good chance that Congressman Lukemeyer will be the chairman of the Finance Committee, which is huge.
Be
Huge.
unbelievable good, and I don't know anybody else up there, that good as I know Blaine, but I know this: spending his lifetime in the banking business, you know what I'm saying, and raising hogs to get himself, through college on a rural farm in Missouri, and helping, and for him to be in a position today to be able to look at the finance from a conservative, practical, in my opinion, practical conservative way. We couldn't do any better in the federal government than Blaine Lukemeyer. He's accessible. He knows what's going on every level. He's been in government long enough to know. And
a huge sacrifice that he makes to live in Washington, D.C.
I think about Jackie all the time, you know what I'm saying? Because Blaine back and forth, and, he's here for meetings and comes with his family to eat occasionally and does whatever. And I think about it. Think about the sacrifice.
It's a huge sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice. Well, it's a huge sacrifice, as you know, as a state rep.
It
I
is.
mean, people go and they leave.
You got to do radio on a Thursday morning.
But these guys, now I'm really lucky. For those of us that live close to Jeff City, we could drive back and forth and spend our evenings whenever we're available with their families and so on. But for those guys that live in the four corners of the state and they leave their families for 5 months and they go live in Jeff City on a per diem that doesn't even pay the bills, and you make people making more at Quaker Window than they make as a state rep, and that's a shame. And we get, Charlie, I don't know, so you were up there 11, 12 years ago?
2010 was my last year. Yep.
So 11 years
11 years ago.
We've kind of have two classes of people at the House now. We have this class of, and I'll call them older guys, who don't really need to be there for the money, but they just want to be of service to the community. But they're retired bankers, they're retired highway patrol, they're retired school superintendents.
Farmers, maybe.
We've got a veterinarian. We have farmers. We have really people from every walk of life. But there's a whole large group of mature men and women who are there for the right reasons, and they don't need the money. Then there's another group. I'll pick on one of my cohorts. I'm not sure I'm supposed to mention them by name. We don't mention them by name on the floor, so.
Right.
So, okay, so I'm going to call it the representative from
St. Louis County.
St. Louis. I think he's from Kansas City, representative from St. Louis. Representative from Kansas City. Anyway, he's 25 years old. And he stands up to introduce himself. And he said, my name is representative from Kansas City. He said, I'm 25 years old. And he says it again, puts his hand on his hip. He said, I'm 25 years old. And he said,
1 year older than he had to be to get elected.
He said, the statutory requirement to hold this position is 24, so he said, you can see I'm overqualified. So we have several of those guys, though, young men and women who don't have a family, who don't have a mortgage on a home, they don't have those financial obligations. But we're missing a group of men and women in the middle who have those obligations to family and to the community. But there's not enough money in Jeff City to support them. And I'm not saying this just because they need a raise, but we need to have a good representation of people all across the spectrum in Missouri, but we can't attract that middle group of men and women just because they're busy with their own lives and can't make a sacrifice.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but yours truly chaired the last salary commission in the state of Missouri.
You're Blaine, right?
Our recommendation was there.
Yeah.
Representative Sassman. We represent, I don't remember exactly, but we realize that, you know what I'm saying? We realize that, and we studied it for a summer, and we made a recommendation, but, it's not politically easy, you know what I'm saying? To vote yourself a raise at any given time, or even get it to come up on the floor.
And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go on record, but
I understand that, and $30,000 a year. I mean, heaven forbid. We're talking about minimum wage here.
How do you raise a family on that?
Well, I mean, I got guys out here today, you know what I'm saying, that are high schoolers. 15, 14. We got a 14-year-old that legally can help, do certain things. He's there making $10.50 an hour. I don't begrudge that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, but let me ask you. You add up the hours that you and your wife, because they're an integral part of this on campaigning, that you would make as per hour as a representative. Less than $10 an hour.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure. Yeah, I'm sure of it. And so when we are in session, now people say, well, it's only a part-time job and you could go do something else when you're not off. But you're doing constituent services when you're off. You're not just out there rolling up hay bales. I mean, there's a lot that has to be done. So I spent yesterday in the Capitol. I spent the day before that in the Capitol. Now is the time to prepare those pieces of legislation. You go through research. You refine those. So come December, we'll be able to pre-file that and get them out in the committees that we want and move that forward. So there's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
But there's satisfaction comes from it too. You know what I'm saying? I would think not all the time, by no stretch of imagination. Your biggest surprise in your first year there?
There's that. But before you get into politics, we have on the street a certain frustration why things don't get done the way they're supposed to. And that frustration never goes away because we get elected and we want to change things, but it's so frustrating sometimes because in the House, as you know, it's a top-down approach to government, and it's the leadership that really drives the train. So it's the speaker, it's the floor leader. Those guys have control, and the rest
Rules Committee and
the Rules Committee. So that brings us to an interesting point too, Charlie. So I think every class recognizes that we need to change the rules a bit and give those people that are on the floor more authority and take the authority away from the leadership, in a sense. So we've created a steering committee to do just that, and we have 4 people from the freshman class, 4 people from the sophomore, 4 people from the junior class on this steering committee, and I was selected to be one of those 4. So
congratulations.
Yeah, that's really cool that we may be able to have some influence. Now, it won't be in the next session this happens, but it'll be
after.
Right. It'll be in the term after that. So we're in the 101st legislative session now, which is for 2 years. We have a speaker that'll serve for 2 years, floor leader for 2 years, unless they're reelected, of course. But it'll be in the 102nd legislative session that we can vote for new rules, and it'll be at the recommendation of the steering committee that we do that.
You know, that's pretty cool. That's first of all, the thinking outside the box is, to a big degree, and it's this centralization of power. You're right. You're totally right. I mean, if you're lucky, to find the right issue and find the right navigation tool, unless you're there and you're championing, some number one cause that everybody agrees with. But if you have Bruce Assman or Charlie Schlottick ideas that you want to get through the House or then through the Senate, you got to be persistent and dang lucky to get anything. You agree with that?
Well, and you have to be really good at networking. You have to get along and build relationships, and it is those relationships that really drive the ball. And you get on the right side of the right people, and things can happen. This is an interesting story I don't think people understand. So I was elected whatever day in November, I'll say November the 5th, and I don't remember what the exact day was, but the very next day after the election, you did the same thing. So we get elected on the 5th of November. On the 6th of November, we go to Jeff City and we pick our leadership.
Yes.
And you pick the speaker pro tem and the floor leader and the whip chairman and
how much time have you really been able to spend with them?
Yeah, you don't know what their work ethic is. You don't have any experience, but yet our class had 48 freshmen in it. And the sophomore class had 54, and they were shut down because of COVID. So they all didn't get to build those relationships. And so then you go the day after you're elected. You don't even know if you're going to get elected, right? But if you're lucky enough to make that mark, And then you go and you vote on those people, and they become your future leaders. I was really lucky that I picked the right people, and I built the right relationships to get started. And I think that's continuing.
That's maturity and wisdom and understanding of the big picture when you're going into it, correct?
Well, I hope something happened there, but I just I feel like I got on the right side of the right people, and I have the ability to get more done.
But you did that. I mean, there's two ways of doing that, you know. One is out of maturity and people's respect for you, you know, as a whole. You know, the other way is how some youth people, you know what I'm saying, get their inauguration into the system to be able to have influence, and that is follow, you know, a particular cause or particular reason or just a particular faction, you know what I'm saying, that has control, Bruce, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying.
I don't know, what are you saying? What are you saying, John?
I'm saying that if you're a young person, you know, you've got to be a more conservative in regard to whatever, to get things steered through the House, okay, and get to be part of that leadership. You've got to have a better cause.
You're not thinking about that representative from Kansas City who was overqualified because he had 25 years of age?
He's got some money behind him. Maybe. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say it is that, you know, money and power, you know what I'm saying, are there, and it's a direct way to leadership to the top if you want to follow that situation. If you only want to represent, you know, this faction all the way through, you're going to have money and power to get you through that. If you're older and mature, you know, that respect, you know, covers a multitude of other things for you to be able to make your mark.
Well, I think it does what money can't do.
Exactly.
And interesting thing about money, and you know, I didn't know, I didn't have any experience, so I'm a freshman, I'm just getting acclimated to this whole world of politics, but I think people have the impression there is this flow of money that happens, but with Clean Missouri, that limits the campaign contributions, it's not there. It's, at least I don't see it. I don't. Nobody's writing checks and sending them to me.
No, I totally agree that most of that does not come individually anymore because that has been cleaned up. But the money for the causes are still there. Huge amount of money, you know what I'm saying, for particular causes. Go through PACs, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. The political action committees are the new vehicle now that receive the funding, but it's not the individuals. So,
and I'm going to call that special interest, whether you agree with that or not. You know, even though some of those special interests are mine and yours, like NRA maybe, you know what I'm saying, or gun rights or whatever, they're still special interest groups.
Well, on the gas tax, on funding for roads and bridges. I mean, people focus their energies and efforts, and whether it was included the Farm Bureau or it included the General Contractors Association, everybody got together, participated in those political action committee groups, and made it happen. So, yeah.
So, being on tourism, okay, and we touched on that, Bruce, and but being on tourism and such a driver of the state of Missouri, you have a great opportunity to really add value to your experience and to the people of the state. Because I don't know of anybody, and I'm not trying to blow smoke because I wouldn't do that to you. You know what I'm saying? But you've traveled this state, and you and Jan know, you know what I'm saying, the ins and outs, and you know the value of our natural resources here, you know. And you know that Missouri is so blessed to have some of the best natural resources in the continental U.S. Alaska, I'll put aside, because you know they're pretty awesome also. But you know that we have these natural resources, and we have a people population. You know what I'm saying, within a day's driving distance. You know what I'm saying, of Missouri, that can absolutely create whatever jobs we as entrepreneurs can think of to feed the next generation, because people love it here. They love Missouri, they love our area, they want to come back and visit. It's on fire, and it will continue to be. If you think of a vacation anymore, my guess is you're going to think about having a camper maybe, you know what I'm saying, or going to a bed and breakfast in rural America and enjoying those values other than maybe flying into New York, you know, and staying at a motel.
I'm surprised. So I have a friend outside of Bell who has the old farmhouse. They built a new house. They left the old farmhouse, grandma's standing. They've gone in and done a little work to it. It's not perfect, but they've started renting it out as a bed and breakfast, and I'll be damned, you can't imagine how busy they are. It's every weekend or for an entire week that people are coming out, and it's just an old wood frame farmhouse, but it's out in the country, and it's what people like.
There's a reason for Airbnb, you know what I'm saying, to be one of the most lucrative investments, you know what I'm saying, in the stock market world. Now, I'm not saying it's going to last forever, but we are starting to see individuality, individual marketing, you know, individual relationships that are established, sitting table to table with people and people's family, like we kind of do here at the White Mule. But Bruce, that pays dividends for a long, long time.
Well, our farm had an old barn on it.
Yes, and you guys did an incredible job, yes.
It's that ecotourism, because for a while we had living quarters and a portion of the barn, and we rented it out to people who paid us handsomely to stay in an old barn out in the country, 20 acres, and they had it all themselves. But what they do for entertainment, they drove through the country and they came here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's that ripple effect that has when you bring people out to the area, and the Rock Island Trail will have the same thing. It's that ripple effect that when we get people here and they expand their exploration just a bit, then they're going to find places like the White Mule, and they're going to find all kinds of events and activities and places to visit, things to do.
And look, it is not that I am not sympathetic, you know, to some of the naysayers that this, you know, Rock Island Rail goes right through their farms, you know what I'm saying, right next to their parents' house or whoever that is been. I have, you know, sympathy, you know what I'm saying, to those individuals that, you know, think that they're going to be disrupted, you know what I'm saying, and lose their privacy. But you know what I tell them honestly, and I've got friends and neighbors, I've got people at work, you know what I'm saying, what I tell them, our family, Bruce, has lived along Highway 50, you know, for generations upon generations. Would I choose that highway running cattle, you know what I'm saying, as we do, to go where it did, you know, if I had the choice of that, you know.
Would you put Highway 50 through the middle of your farm?
Absolutely not. There's no way, because, you know, the liability that I have to do, the extra work, you know, you would rather not have it, but it's here, and it's public good. We all get benefit out of that, and all of the neighbors and everybody that travels, you know, get benefit out of that. Certainly all the towns get great benefit out of that. And I'm sorry if this rail comes through there, but you're never going to get it back. You're never going to get that particular piece of property back. The federal legislation, you know, the federal rail has taken care of that. And I wouldn't want them to take that back. Who knows when we're going to need to, you know, use the Rock Island to go from St. Louis to Kansas City for military, you know what I'm saying, or infrastructure or whatever. They've already got, you know, fiber optics running down through those things. And why shouldn't they? You know what I'm saying? It's a corridor that the government has bought and paid for, or stole. I mean, the railroad had a lot of power, I will say that.
So that, yeah.
But you know the point.
I do know the point. How much time we have, Charlie?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Do you Noah Sweat? You ever heard of Noah Sweat?
Tell me.
What does it say up here? Louisiana congressman?
Yes.
Louisiana legislature? Well,
Mississippi liquor.
Prohibition state, right?
Yeah, and I don't have your glasses.
Here, let me see.
Either pair.
So Noah Sweat was a member of the Mississippi legislature, gave a speech in 1954, and it was called the Whiskey Speech, and it concerned the question of prohibition of alcoholic liquor, a law that was still in force in Mississippi at the time the speech was delivered. And so I have that speech. I want to read to you, can I?
Go.
Okay. So it says, "My friends, I had not intended to discuss this controversial subject at this time. However, I want you to know I do not shun controversy. On the contrary, I will take a stand on any issue at any time, regardless of how fraught with controversy it might be." And you asked me how I feel about whiskey, and all right, here's how I feel about whiskey. And when you say whiskey, you mean the devil's brew, the poison scourge, the bloody monster that defiles innocence, that dethrones reason, destroys homes, creates misery and poverty, just literally takes the bread from the mouths of little children. And if you mean the evil drink that topples the Christian man and woman from the pinnacles of righteousness, from gracious living to the bottomless pit of degradation and despair and shame and helplessness and hopelessness, then I'm certainly against it. But, if when you say whiskey, you mean the oil of conversation, the philosophic wine, the ale that is consumed when good fellows get together, that puts song in their hearts and laughter on their lips, and the warm glow of contentment in their eyes, if you mean the Christmas cheer, if you mean the stimulating drink that puts a spring in the old gentleman's step on a frosty and crispy morning, if you mean the drink that enables a man to magnify his joy and his happiness, or to forget, if only for a little while, life's great tragedies, heartaches, and sorrows. And if you mean the drink, the sale of which pours into our treasuries untold millions of dollars, which are used to provide the tender care of our little crippled children, of our blind and our deaf and our dumb and our pitifully aged and infirm, and to build our highways and hospitals and schools, well, then I am certainly for it. And this is my stand, and I will not retreat from it, and I will not compromise. Here, I brought you a copy.
I am going to frame that. Can I put mule shine in for me?
You bet.
God, it's been fun. And just so our audience knows, we've had a good time. We have not tipped the bottle.
Not yet.
We have not.
I don't know. How much time do we have?
Let me do this.
Okay, you do your...
So we're on KTUI 1560 AM, 94.1 FM, or possibly Facebook Live, talking with Representative Bruce Sassman and having a grand time, I should have to say. But let me take over for Gracie here and tell you a few things that are happening in our neck of the woods this week or the upcoming week. Saturday, June the 26th, is a picnic at the Rosebud United Methodist Church. They have all of the above plus homemade ice cream. Get there at Rosebud. It's right on Highway T, and it'll be a great time. And then another annual church picnic at Zion St. Paul at Bay, June the 26th also. So they'll have the same thing. That's right down in Bay, and I know our representative will have a busy weekends here, you know. And then St. Gerald's church picnic, Saturday, June the 26th also, from 2 till 7, and they have a family-style dinner, and they also have carry-out. So that's the Catholic church in Gerald. And then here at the White Mule, we have fried chicken and roast beef every Sunday, and steak dinners Friday night. Let's see, the wine pairing dinner night Friday is chicken parmesan this week, along with steaks. And we have an event on Sunday, June the 20th, Father's Day. Dave Benson will be playing here, and I think we're going to ask for reservations on that day, and I'm sure we're going to take care of it. Don't say it here, but I'm pretty sure the fathers are going to have a drink of whatever they desire on the house. It's Father's Day. So you got your work cut out for you, audience. a lot going on. We talk a lot about Mother's Day. We talk a lot about Father's Day, but get out and say thanks to those people that have brought you up and mentored you along the way. Bruce Sassman,
Thanks,
my
Charlie.
friend.
Thanks, sir.
You're doing a great job, and I'm very, very proud, you know what I'm saying, to know you and the job you're doing for the state of Missouri, and you will make a difference.
Thanks.
You will absolutely make a difference, and I appreciate you. Watch my cousin-in-law
Oh, yeah, your cousin-in-law, yeah.
tripping with him.
Yeah, the representative from Freeburg. That's what we're talking.
Right. Hey, we're going to be back next week. I'm not sure who's going to be here, but we're going to have somebody. So good Lord willing, we will see you next Thursday. Have a great week, and watch the heat out there just a little bit, because it's going to be a warm one. Thanks for being along.
UFOs intercepting our ships and planes. Are they a sign of something real, dangerous, or even biblical? Now, Rob Schmidt takes a look at the biggest mystery of our time. Rob's special series,